Hey, I'm Anna.
And I'm Liza, and today we're going to look at different ways we learn best. Now, I know it doesn't sound super exciting, but hang in there. I think you'll be surprised. Now, Anna, when you have to learn something, are you one of those people that have to be boxed in and super focused without distractions, or do you walk around? How do you learn best?
I think I learn best by actually just doing what it is that I'm learning. If I'm just taking information in, I will get lost very easily. I just have to do it. That's the way it's gonna stick.
Well, you know, that's actually pretty interesting, because one of the best ways that's been proven for us to take in and learn has been to copy behavior. I mean, if you look at kids, nobody specifically tells them how to walk or how to drink from a cup or how to kick a soccer ball. Kids watch and they copy.
Okay. You know, I see what you're doing here. I see where we're going with this. This actually ties in perfectly with our big idea this week. We know how to be faithful because God is faithful.
Exactly, and God never changes, so we can look to God to learn how to be faithful, how to be loving, how to be kind. Let's take a look at this God story to learn more.
Let's continue reading. God... Hey everybody, my name is Liza. Thanks for hanging out. I wanted to share a story with you about my closest friend, Alicia.
Howdy.
We've been friends for over 15 years, and we've been through highs and lows, but Alicia has always been so faithful to me. One of my favorite memories is when I was baptized, and she came to support me, and she gave me this beautiful necklace with the date of my baptism engraved on it, and I love wearing it. And I wanted to tell you this story because today's big idea is we know how to be faithful because God is faithful to us. In this series, we're checking out the fruit of the Spirit, and that's when God's Spirit is at work in us, and we see things like love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Today, we're going to focus on faithfulness. And when have we seen God be faithful? Great question. I'm so glad you asked. Well, we can go all the way back to the story of Abraham. God promised Abraham he would be the father of many, and through him, all families on earth would be blessed. And then God carried that promise on to Abraham's son, Isaac, and then carried the promise on to his son, Jacob. And Jacob's name later became Israel, and they grew to this big family called the Israelites. God promised the Israelites that he would rescue them out of slavery and out of Egypt, and he was faithful to them in that too. Then God made a covenant, which is another word for an important promise, to the Israelites during the time of Moses. This started with what we call the 10 Commandments, and it was just rules for how to live and ways to worship. And this covenant meant that God would always be their God, and the Israelites would always be his people. And once again, God was faithful. And then God made a covenant to King David. He promised that through David's family, there would be a royal line that would last forever. And we know who is part of David's family, Jesus, our King forever. And so again, God's promise came true, and he showed us that he is faithful. Then, in Jesus, God made an even better promise, a new covenant. And because we know God is always faithful, we know that this promise will be true. And this covenant or promise includes us, you and I. In fact, Hebrews 8 tells us that Jesus has greater work to do for the new covenant. Let's see what it says. The days are coming, announces the Lord. I will make a new covenant with the people of Israel. I will also make it with the people of Judah. It will not be like the covenant I made with their people of long ago. That was when I took them by the hand. I led them out of Egypt. My new covenant will be different because they didn't remain faithful to my old covenant. So I turned away from them, announces the Lord. This is the covenant I will establish with the people of Israel after that time, says the Lord. I will put my laws in their minds. I will write them on their hearts. I will be their God, and they will be my people. God promised that he was going to make this new covenant to people, and then he did it, once again, showing his faithfulness to people. Maybe you're wondering what he meant when he said he will put his laws in our hearts and in our minds. God didn't mean he's going to take out a pen and write it on our hearts. What he meant is we will just know what is good and what is right and what is wrong without having to be reminded over and over again. We'll just know. Let's continue reading. God called this covenant new, so he has done away with the first one, and what is out of date and has been done away with will soon disappear. So this covenant is new and improved, and it is the best promise yet, that if we live our lives with Jesus as Lord of our lives, we're a part of God's kingdom. That's God's way of living, and we get to be with God forever. Isn't that great? And so we know what it means to be faithful, to be trustworthy, to keep all of our promises, because that's what God does for us. And we can show our faithfulness by believing in what God promises us and by being faithful in our relationship with God. So what does God's faithfulness look like? It looks like keeping His word, always doing what He says He'll do, always loving us. So that's one reason why Jesus tells us to let our yes be yes and our no be no. So in other words, don't say one thing and do another. Do what you say you are going to do, especially when you make a commitment to God. When we say we will do something, we can show that we're faithful by following through and actually doing it. When we say that we trust God even when you don't know what He's doing. When we say that we love God even when times get tough. So let's trust that the Spirit of God is at work in us and show that we are faithful. We know how to be faithful because God is faithful to us. Thank you so much, everyone, for hanging out today. See you next week.
All right, turn to the person next to you and answer these following questions before the time runs out.
Question time. What does God's faithfulness look like? Keeping His word, doing what is right, always loving us, or all of the above? All of the above. What promises has God made to you and to us as followers of Jesus?
Game time! Sticky situation. How many times can you say the key verse before things get sticky? Say it with me. The Holy Spirit produces this kind of fruit in our lives: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Galatians 5, verse 22 to 23. Get ready. 3, 2, 1, go!
You know, we've only covered a small portion of the Bible, and we can already see how many times God did exactly as He promised. Now, can you imagine what it would look like if we became people who lived by that example and were as faithful as God is?
Oh man, relationships will change. I mean, people will actually do what they say. There won't be any backstabbing. There won't be any bullying. People will actually show love instead of just talking about it. I mean, we could actually be looking at world peace.
What a different place it would be, for sure. We want to introduce you to our friends Kiana and Sydney. These are two girls who both attended youth group growing up and learned how to draw close to God because of the example they had through their student leaders. Let's see the story and watch how it pans out.
My name's Kiana. This is my best pal, Sid, and she has a really cute puppy named Smokey.
And I'm over here a lot because Kiana makes the best coffees. So Kiana and I like to hang out a lot, and one of our favorite things to do is bake and make good food.
Look what I got! Wow.
We're at university, so we really like to indulge in the nicer things every once in a while. That's what we like to get up to. When I was growing up, I knew about the church and all of that. Like, I grew up in a Catholic household, but I never really had a deep faith during that time.
I I went to church a little bit as a kid, but my parents were kind of more Easter, Christmas Christians, and other than that, I didn't really like Sunday school, so I didn't really learn that much about anything until later on in high school. Once we got introduced to the meeting house, we realized they really needed some female youth leaders, so we just kind of got involved with that.
Yeah, and it was a really good fit for us. I mean, we spent all of high school kind of having this role, but more as a student, so it's been a really great opportunity to be university students and to have this in our lives. Like, it's just so much fun hanging out with the kids and like getting to be there on midweeks and on Sundays. About 90% of our conversation is just how to be better youth leaders for our kids. Like, we like argue, like, this is how we can do things better here. And like, I think, yeah, like kids just have such a huge part of our hearts. Like, we want the best for them.
Yeah, and I think for us really what it comes down to is really a core part of us getting to know Jesus was how our youth leaders were with us, and more than anything, we want to be that same kind of love and friend for our kids.
I feel like as students, obviously our studies are important, but I feel like a lot of our life is really dedicated to friendships.
Yeah.
And like,
I know our free time is spent either with each other or with the youth. Like, I think that's all we really do, okay?
yeah.
So for us, friendship is really just always being there for one another in whatever situation.
You know, we're there, we see each other almost every day, and so it's just that check-in. We're pretty much each other's families here.
It took a little bit for us to become as close as we are now. So even if you don't have any like really strong friendships, or you feel like you're lacking in that regard, God will play into your life and bring those people to you.
It's so worth it to just be present in all your relationships and to just see where God's going to take you in those.
All right, okay.
You know, Sydney and Kiana had such an honest and uncomplicated relationship. And I loved how they became family as they went to university.
Yeah, no kidding. And like you said earlier, they learned from their youth leaders, and now they get to share that knowledge with the youth at their church.
So good. And you know, this ties right back to our big idea. We know how to be faithful because God is faithful. So I want to encourage all of us to follow that example and be people who show God's love in the way that we live.
Yeah, and it can be super simple too. Look at God, follow His example, and you can have an impact on the lives of those around you.
Yes.
Let's break into our small groups so we can actually discuss how this would look like in our own lives.